Perfect.
Yeah, can
All
you hear
right.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome.
So, welcome to another chapter, Karachi chapter session on Friends of Figma World Tour. It's about design leadership, getting a seat at a table. And I'm your host, Umair Ali Khatri. I currently head user experience and design at 10 Pearls. Apart from that, I also lead Karachi chapter, Friends of Figma. And last year, we were globally number three in terms of RSVPs. So kudos to all of you guys for attending and learning from the sessions that we organize. It's actually about community, giving back to the community. This world tour, it's a 24-hour non-stop sessions organized by the community. And this is our session for the Karachi chapter. So every hour there's a new session happening within their local vicinity, and our goal is to celebrate the richness and diversity of our global community. And for that, we have a very renowned speaker from our chapter, Mr. Hasan Habib. Uh, I remember meeting him. I think it's about a decade old story. Like I met him at a very random event, and I got to know that he came to Karachi after doing his two masters, and I've seen him grow the digital landscape, the design landscape within Karachi and within Pakistan. So, without further ado, over to you, Hassan, to take things forward here.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Umair. Super grateful and happy to be here. Um, just a little bit about myself. My name is Hasan Habib. I run a small design agency here in Karachi called Designist, where we try to deliver value and impact through design. And we really want to create the future change makers of our country that can make a lot of difference. And that's one of the reasons why I like to partake in events like this, where I can, give back a little bit. So, Umair, again, thank you so much for having me. And I guess we'll jump right in. Uh, I think, Umair, you need to stop sharing so I can start sharing. All right. I'll also keep the chat space open. So if I do a tab, let me know if this is working. Never used this platform before. Is it working? Omer, you're muted, so I can't hear you.
Yeah, it's working. I can see messages from people
All
in the
right,
group.
awesome. So I'm also putting the chat on the side in case anybody has any thoughts, questions. I'm happy to jump in. Um, Hi, Mama. Nice to see you. All right. Okay. So I'm going to jump right in. I think we covered this stuff. So, what I really want to start with, and this is a phrase that we hear often, where it says, good design is good business. And I want to kind of unpack what that is and how design leadership plays a role into all of this. And at the end, the kind of goal is how you end up getting a seat on the table. And when I mean a seat on the table, it really just means that your voice is being heard. And maybe someday there'll be some chief product officer or chief design officer that you can be part of the boards. I know this happens internationally, but it hasn't happened in Pakistan yet, but maybe someday we'll get there. So when we think about business, what are they trying to really achieve? Uh, and when they think about things, they say, okay, we need to make money, increase profits. Like that's the bottom line. The second thing they say is like, we want to truly create value and impact for people who use these products and services. And lastly, we want to solve problems. And you must be thinking, yeah, as designers, we want to do the same things, minus the first part. We want to create value and impact, and we want to solve problems. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, or maybe even in larger other countries, I've seen this happen is, what do businesses actually think about us as designers? The first thing they say is when they give designer work is make it look sexy. And I really hate this term, but they literally say make it look sexy, make it look good, make it look pretty. The second thing they say is, oh, design is very expensive. Like, oh, like we shouldn't invest in this. We just maybe get a graphic designer to do it, or we might get the front end developers to do it. So we don't want to invest in this. Next is we can do it later. So they're like, oh, let's figure out the business models. Let's do all the engineering, and then we'll ask the design in the end to put like a wrapper on this. And lastly, when we talk about design thinking and we start using these big buzzwords, they end up saying, oh, this is just a bunch of jargon mumbo jumbo, and they just put up a bunch of post-its and they expect us to be solving problems. Unfortunately, design is a lot more than this. And what we need to do is really change that. And what design leadership does is a stepping stone towards doing that. So when we think about design, it's really important to look at design in two facets. One is known as small d design, the second known is big D design. And when we uncover these two things, what it really means is that the small d design is the visual expression of doing design related things. The second thing is about design as problem solving. So, a lot of what you may call design thinking or service design or UX strategy, that kind of stuff. Not to say that one is better than the other. These are both aspects of design and they're both very, very important to do. Unfortunately, everybody views design as a visual expression of things. And when we talk about these two things, small d design is about shape, form, function, whereas design with big D design is focused on problem solving, research, framing them, doing strategy around this. And when you look at these two aspects, what ends up happening is small d design is viewed as an output, and big D design is viewed as outcome. So, how are you helping that organization achieve what it's trying to do versus saying, hey, let's just take out X amount of screens by doing this kind of work. So another way to think through things is also about maturity of design. So you'd be like, oh man, I would love to do this problem solving things, and I'm just stuck making screens at my job. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just really important to see how is your organization viewing design and what is the role of design within your company. And once you start recognizing that, you can understand, hey, how can I create a shift in here? Or how do I create a shift in myself to maybe move somewhere else because that organization may not understand that? Or can you create that change within that organization as a change maker to change that overall situation of that organization? So when we look at design maturity of organizations, you can see them in four buckets or four circles as I've made it. One is design is external. Second is design is part of the organization. Third, it's core. And the fourth, it's integral. So when we talk about external or part of it, we're viewed as service providers. So if you think about externally, a company might bring on an agency to say, hey, can you come and help us solve this problem? And give us these outputs of these screens and then move forward. It might be part of an organization where there is a design team part of a company, and all that is given is the BRD is made, the front end stuff is done, everything is pretty much completed. And at the end, they say, okay, let's give this to the designers, and now they can just again make the screens. So you're part of the thing, part of the organization, but you're not part of like very strategic related things. Then it becomes core to the organization where they're like, no, design needs to be at the center, and we need design to play a role in overall problem solving. So at that point, you might be part of that business requirement document, you might be part of that product roadmap and backlog where you're playing a strategic role and actually thinking through how this actual product can work. And lastly, design becomes absolutely integral to the organization. But that means that it is a mindset that every person within that organization, be it a CEO or be it a chief technology officer or anybody within that organization, it's a mindset that they all have and they all know about how the value of design can be So again, it's about moving from an output perspective and going more towards the outcome of what design can do. And I believe that design leadership is that bridge that helps you to get from an output driven organization to an outcome driven organization. And I'll just be sharing a few guiding principles that have worked for me in order to kind of bridge this gap. And I've been doing this, um, I've been wearing a design hat for over 10 years now. And I've seen how different organizations operate in different ways. And I'll be sharing some of these points with you and correlating it with some stories that I have that can make this more relatable. So, first is a mindset. So, how do you actually have a design mindset within the organization? So, firstly, you need to move your mindset from a delivery mindset to a strategic partner mindset, which means that you need to start viewing your role as more than just an output of screens and thinking about how are these screens actually going to influence human behavior and who's going to be using the screens. We often get so caught up in completing our Jira tickets or thinking about, okay, have I met this BRD requirement, that we forget the bigger picture that's going on. Number two is we need to focus more on our impact of our work rather than the output. Sometimes we're measuring our work, okay, I've done so many screens today, I did all this work, versus thinking about how has this work of mine actually created an impact for the end user. Uh, and number three, we need to speak the language of business. Often, when we talk about design, we use all these big jargon words. However, a lot of the people that we're working with don't understand that. Whoops, I don't know what happened there. And a lot of the time, uh, we don't understand the other stakeholders. So when I talk about other stakeholders, everybody has a key metric towards what they're working towards, such as return on investments or key performance indicators. What is the growth going to be? How is the conversions going to be affected by this? How are we going to retain our customers? So when you start understanding these terminologies, then your design is now moving more away from just creating of a screen and actually working with these other functions to help achieve these business goals. So I'm just going to have a quick drink of water. ROI, very known jargon. How many of you? I mean, ROI is a very important thing because at the end of the day, that's how business looks at things: inputs and outputs, and then eventually outcomes. Now, another thing that's very, very important is empathy. And everybody knows now in human centered design, design thinking, so design, we need to have empathy, we need to have empathy, we need to have empathy. And yes, of course, we need to have empathy for the end user. But when I talk about empathy, I'm not talking about empathy for the end user. Yes, that's a given. What I'm talking about is empathy for all these other service providers who are working with you in your organization to finally deliver what you need to deliver. It's really important to understand and empathize with the chiefs, with the business. Hey, what are they trying to do with product, with tech? Do you even understand what their constraints are? Do you even understand how you're actually supporting them? The way I view design is it's a change maker tool. Your role as a designer is to take an existing situation and making it better than what it was before. So it's really important that you start gelling in with these different with the different teams and people within the organization to help actually champion what you want to do. Otherwise, they'll only start looking at you as an output. So I'm just going to share a quick story also about empathy. Sometimes we as designers come in with this magic wand and we're like, okay, this is how design needs to be done, and this is the flow, and this is what the final wireframe is going to be. And we were brought on with a very, very large organization, and we came in very heavy. We were like, okay, this is what the process flow needs to be, this is how the product needs to work. And yes, we facilitated a session where we had BA in the room, we had product in the room, we had tech in the room, we had business in the room. But what happened was that design was really dictating almost like what was happening, rather than seeing their inputs and perspectives on what is possible and not possible. And what ended up happening is that we did the wireframes and all the work for all the flows of this entire large product. And then our role was done. And then a few months later, we were called in to say, okay, we've now built it out. And why don't you come test what's done? And what happened was that we started looking at the screens and we were like, hey, these were not the screens that we made as a design team. What happened was that when we dug a little bit deeper, we realized that because designers were dictating everything, the other team members felt like they had no ownership over the product and service. So what they did was they took their own initiative. They ended up redoing a lot of the work again, and they just found one designer within the organization and just kept telling him, hey, you make the screen, you make the screen, I'm telling you what to do, just do what I'm telling you to do. And what ended up happening in the end, when we came back on board, the entire design system was broken. There was no clear management of the files, and what the developers had was different what the designers had. Designers were making changes, and the development mode was still connected to your main source file. So everything became a complete mess. And what happened is that a lot of the work had to be redone again. And this cost the organization a lot of money and a lot of time. And everybody was upset because they were like, everything's not working. And all the designer could have really done initially was take a step back, build empathy for everybody, kind of build rapport within everyone, and then kind of work together as a team of co-ownership towards making that product actually come into life, which alhamdulillah now that's the case moving forward. Second is, again, when we talk about this, it's about building trust. And how are you building trust? So again, these conversations that I was talking about before, it's all about building trust. And other ways you can do that is being transparent and being cross-functional and collaborative with all these team members. It's not about do things in one silo, hiding your BRD and strategy and saying, oh, I don't want anybody to know this and it should not be leaked, and then passing it forward. Like, it's so funny. I've seen people complete designs and then in the BRD, they're making the designers make wireframes again just to backtrack so other departments can't even see what the designers have done. So it's about creating this kind of atmosphere where cross-functional collaboration can happen. And the role of a designer, again, because they're empathetic by their nature, they're able to do this. Two, it's about delivering quick wins. So, and communicating why and how you do things. So it's not about saying, यार मुझे ये trend अच्छा लग रहा है और ये glass morphism हो गया है तो sorry, I guess I'm supposed to talk in English, but what I'm saying was
It's
that
okay. No, no, no. You can be.
I can talk bilingual, okay,
Education.
because it said
Yeah.
English on my talk. Uh, but what for the non-English,
No worries.
for the English speakers in the room, what I was saying was that you can do all these, you can have all these bells and whistles, and if you don't have any rationale to back that, what ends up happening is that your credibility as a designer is lost. You're just saying that it's a trend or it looks good versus saying why it's important to make this design decision, and how this is actually going to create impact. So what you need to do as a designer is showcasing consistently again and again and again how your work is actually driving constant value. And the way that value is being met is, again, KPIs and ROIs. I know as much as the designers hate hearing these voices, it's important because that's what you're working towards. And the more of those goals that are being met through your work, the more wins that you have. And the more you tie in your work to those wins, the more trust and credibility you build. So, again, I'll share an example of another bank that built things in silos. and we talk about digital account opening. And the account opening, believe it or not, their UI was 90% there. They had followed the design system to the T. We were brought on to again do usability tests because they were like, hey, our design is fine. We just do not understand why our conversion is not happening. And when we did the usability test, we realized that it was not actually the engineering that was a problem. It was actually the communication between different screens. So just to give you an example, what what you're seeing in this photo can, I mean, if you can, yeah, I guess it's Mizan Bank. Yes, it is Mizan. I mean, it is public knowledge now. It's on our portfolio. Yes, it's Mizan Bank. Can you guys tell me in the chat, what are you seeing this woman doing on her phone? I'll wait like 30 seconds. What do you think she's doing? Yeah, biometric. Yeah, fingerprint. Yes. And how is she doing it? Sleeping. She's almost falling asleep. She's touching the screen instead of the camera. Yes, she is touching the screen. So it said, if anybody's opened a digital account, Naya Pay, Sada Pay, or had to do biometric on their phones again, you have to put your if this is your phone, you're supposed to put your hand in front of your phone to do biometric. Okay. And then another system at Mizan Bank was actually working fine. But she was placing her hand on the phone. Why was she placing her hand on the phone? It was very simple. On the illustration, it said, please place your hand on the box, not behind the camera in the box, on the box. Now, what happened was that the designer just copy pasted that text and put it on his screen and then passed it forward to engineering to build. Say, हाँ, brand team ने मुझे ये बोल दिया तो मैंने ये कर दिया. And the illustrator was supposed to make an illustration to indicate how this hand scanning should be done. The illustrator had literally made a lanat. So sorry for the non-Urdu speakers, but he had made an illustration of a hand like this and said, here, scan your hand. So for the people who also were doing it right, they were not putting the hand like this, they were putting it like this. And the others who were reading the instructions were saying putting the hands on the box. Now, what we ended up telling Mizan Bank is like, look, your systems are fine, your UI is fine. You just need to fix these two issues. Fix the writing and change the illustration. And just by doing these two little things, their conversion rate increased by 50%. So 50% now, more accounts were being opened. But coming back to the point, that is what builds trust. So when you break down these silos, then the organizations start believing and trusting in design. They're like, yes, design actually makes a difference, and we should look at design a little bit more closely. So, number 3 is influence and advocacy. Now, with these things, you need to speak about it. You need to be that person. And I know as designers, we're generally introverted. By nature, we're introverted. But it's important that we share this. And when it comes to influence and advocacy, become an advocate, both internally and externally. Tell people within your organization of the impact that you can have. Come out and talk. It doesn't have to be on the Friends of Figma world tour. It can be in a small meetup. It can be in a small get together. It can be in anything within your communities. Do that. And try to do it in more outside than our design communities and circles, because that's the people who need to understand it more than us, because we all know this. It's about how do you do it on the person on the outside. It was really interesting. There was Ali Farid. He's like the chairman and CEO, chairman, I think, of K-Trade, this big commodities and stock trading app. And literally, he wrote to SECP that, hey, listen, your account opening experience is broken. Please, like, get designers to fix it. And I was like, wow, when a non-designer person is advocating for design, that's when you know something is changing. So you need to do that. And then SECP, alhamdulillah, they called me, and maybe something will come out of that. Uh, Number two is be part of the cross-functional teams and the meetings. It's not just about design reviews. If you're a senior leader, if you're a senior person and you're doing reviews, get out of that designer bubble. You need to sit with the other teams, sit with business, try to understand, hey, if I do this project, what are the final outcomes? If the company is about to pilot a new design, how is that pilot being designed? What role can design play in ensuring that that pilot is successful? If marketing is happening and you need to talk about the new features of this product and service, how is design becoming a role in that? And you saw, I mean, with Naya Pay, the launch of Naya Pay, I mean, they literally only changed the front screen, but it's nice and flashy. But again, they're all advocating for it, and every person I see within their teams are all talking about it, and they've become part of that conversation more than just saying, oh, we did a good job at doing design. So it's about how you as a person playing that role and in talking about the work that you're doing. And two ways that you can do this. Again, number one is storytelling. Storytelling is so important. And number two is metrics. Numbers just honestly don't lie. Just like I said earlier with Mizan Bank, 50% increase, a huge change. So let me share two stories again that can help you understand how storytelling works. Number one is Pakistan Sign Language, right? And we worked with the Pakistan Sign Language to digitize it for a mini computer called a Raspberry Pi and then distribute this nationwide so people of the deaf community can be able to speak to each other and learn this new language. So we visited schools across Karachi, Nawab Shah, and Hyderabad to understand what is the role of sign language in the classrooms, what is the role of digital in sign language, and what are the challenges that these students face, the teachers face, and the parents face. And once we understood these challenges, it then went and came into this mini computer that you can see over here. It was in a monitor, the Raspberry Pi was put in. 1,000 units were distributed nationwide in 90 cities and 190 schools, and over 60,000 lives were impacted. This also went on to win two awards. But when it comes to storytelling, what the important thing is, you may have created this really great part of technology, but when you talk for an entire community to communicate before, something that we take for granted, the ability to speak, but there's so many people in our country that don't have this ability. And that is what we actually enabled more than all these metrics and numbers. That is very, very important. Number two, Abhi, one of the largest startups, I could say, of Pakistan. They came to us because they didn't have a design or product team, and they were like, listen, we need to do this advanced salary application and we need your help. We need you to make our logo and we need you to build our first product. We were like, sure, we'll build this product for you. And they're like, हाँ जो West में हो रहा है, whatever happening in the West, just copycat it and it should be fine. And we were like, sure, but we need to do some kind of research, some kind of human-centered design, because if you just copy paste it, it doesn't apply to our context. So they were like, look, we're paying you, just do what we're telling you to do. They didn't say it exactly like that, but when you're working with a client, you can't really push back too much. But then when we designed it, we were like, look, you still need to test it because you're targeting blue and gray collar workers. Their level of literacy is completely different. Their financial literacy is completely different. And if you want adoption and you're going to your next raising rounds, you need to make sure that what you pilot with is the actual correct product. So meet Khadim Bhai. We gave it to Khadim Bhai. He was a peon in our office. And we tested multiple Khadim Bhais within our building. of that persona type. And guess what? Khadim Bhai just did not understand this product. And we took this data back to Abhi and we're like, look, the people you're targeting, it's not going to work for them. So we need to go back to the drawing board and make a few tweaks so they can actually understand it. So we did it. Uh, then we tested, and Khadim Bhai ended up being one of the largest borrowers of Abhi within our company, to a point where the product was too sticky that we actually had to like remove Abhi. We were like, man, people are taking too many loans. Uh, but what ended up happening is that Abhi went on to raise $17 million at the time at a $90 million valuation. They did a bunch of more rounds and raised way more $1 million, and now they actually have acquired a bank. But what happens is that it ties back to that first seed, right? And it's about, if they hadn't tested with Khadim Bhai and they had launched a product for the wrong target audience, they may have not gotten that adoption that they needed in the first place to get all these rounds to reach where they are. So that's why telling these stories about the impact of design is very, very important. Next is design ops. Now, when you're in a leadership position, it's really, really important that you have a methodology and framework through which design is actually delivered in your organization. And this can be unique for every organization, but it's important that all stakeholders have a process for doing this. So, number one is have a process and method for doing things. That's very, very important. Number two is you need the space and the tools. So it's not just saying that, okay, we have a design process, do research, then do framing, then do ideation, and then do prototyping and launch. It's not just about doing that, right? What are the supporting tools and methods that enable that to happen? Do you have a space for brainstorming? Are you allowing people to put up sticky notes on the wall? Are we using Figma or not using Figma? Are you still doing screens on Photoshop, for instance? Um, and do you have the communication tools? Is there Slack? Is there Notion, Trello, whatever to track these methods? A lot of the times, and I've seen it, and it's my biggest pet peeve, is like project management is happening on WhatsApp. It's like, man, WhatsApp is such a personal tool. Like, please don't message me about work here. But again, these things are really, really important. And these are things, yeah, design sprints. Um, Whatever that method you're choosing, stick to it and see and iterate on that method. Is this method actually working or not? Number three is culture. Active and think about these shared behaviors and believe in the same things. Do you all want to work towards a similar goal? Because if the culture is not there, then honestly, like, everybody is just a cog in the wheel who's showing up to work, doing their job, getting their paycheck, and going home. There's no, that is infectious. When your team has a culture, I've seen it spreads like infection towards other teams, and then they start adopting these new behaviors. And the design lab, just another story. When we talk about operations and spaces, an organization said, hey, we're going to build a design lab because building a design lab is going to make everybody more designy and creative, and we're going to have things happening in design thinking way. What they do, they put a bunch of standing desks in a big glass room, and they said, here's your design lab. And this is what happens when there isn't close collaboration between your design teams and your product teams, and where your SAT, or your SAT is like a family business operator, or your chief guys that, okay, we need design is a new thing, let's make a lab, right? And they don't realize that a lab is not just a space. A design lab is like a mindset. And the last thing you want is putting fixed stand-up desks in a classroom, because what ended up happening with that design lab is that it just became a meeting room. It did not become an inclusive, collaborative space. Are you? You really, when it comes to facilitator of change that's happening within that space. And what can you do? Number one is show up no matter what. Like just keep showing up, believing in what you're really believing in, and being an advocate for making that change actually happen. Number two is creating and giving space to the designers that are working under you, giving space to the product team, you know, allowing people to make mistakes. Somebody also on Figma as a leader, like one thing is that you're seeing that your junior person who's working your team is not making the screens the way you're imagining it. And you push him to the side and say, hey, let me just do it because the time it'll take for me to explain this problem to you is longer than me actually saying doing it. That's probably the worst thing that you can do for your team member because you're actually disempowering them. Let them make that mistake. Let them learn on their own. Because if you stand in and you jump in to fix their problem every time, they'll become self reliant on you and they won't actually empower themselves to actually learn from their mistakes. So please don't do that. Give people the space to actually make those mistakes and learn on their own. And lastly, is guide people through that space and ambiguity because everybody knows design is ambiguous. We may or may not know what the outcomes may be, but it's about how are you as a design leader creating that path that allows for multiple team members to move through this ambiguity to finally get the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. And it's really important to think through that your team is everything and they're not resources. We are people. And it's really important that we treat people like people and humans, not like cogs in the wheel. And eventually, if you do all of this stuff, you end up getting a seat on the table. You're invited to those conversations. You're asked about, hey, how can I make this pilot more successful? Or, hey, I'm stuck with this particular, even politics within my teams. How do I navigate this? Or as simple as, hey, should we make this glass morphism or should we go flat? Like, whatever that conversation is, if you've built up that credibility, you finally get that seat on the table. And if you don't get that seat on the table, it's okay. What's important is you advocating for design. And sometimes it's also by not calling it design itself. This is something I learned from Peter Merholz. He wrote this book called Org Design for Design Orgs. And if you know about the story of Troy and the wooden horse, it's about disguising design and still advocating for it in a subtle way till they reach that level of design maturity where you can call it design. And what I love most about leadership, and this is a thought, I don't know where I got this from, but I think leadership is about trying to be, again, the best version of yourself and trying to bring out the best in others. Thank you. If you guys have any questions, you guys want to follow me on. I'm going to, again, take any questions if anybody has it.
All right, Hassan, this was really, really insightful. I can personally relate to all the stories you shared with us. And definitely there are a lot of questions. So I've just opened up the Q&A. You guys can post your questions over there and we'll take a minute for people to share their questions. And by the way, we have a gift voucher from Figma. And how about Hassan? Whichever question is more relevant to our session today, maybe we can give that to that person.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent amount.
Yeah, and they can buy merch from Figma website. So we'll share that coupon code with the winner. The Q&A is up. You guys can post
The
your
person, the
questions.
best question is going to get. All right, I see some coming in the chat. Are there any? There's a Q&A section. You guys can drop in the Q&A section. It might be easier to do it there. I could you share the presentation? It would help us a lot. Yeah, for sure. I'll share the presentation. I'll share with
This
Umair, and I'm
section
sure
is
he has the
yeah,
participant list. So
yeah, and this session is recorded, so it will be uploaded to YouTube's channel of Friends of Figma World Tour. So every session of this whole 24 hours marathon would be uploaded there. You can watch the session, and for the presentation, we'll definitely load it out to our
uh,
participants.
all right, so we have two questions. One is, where do you get your inspiration from, and do you use any tools for A/B testing? So there are two questions in one question. So I'll answer the first one. Inspiration. I think you get inspiration from everything. So you need to be very, very curious as a designer or as a person. And inspiration can come from anywhere. It can be from books. It can be things you see on TV. It can be YouTube. It can be going out in nature for a walk or going to the beach or the forest. Whatever that is for you, I think it's important to just keep yourself open to see where anything comes from. As far as A/B testing, do you use any specific tools? No, we don't use any specific tools. We just create two versions on Figma, and then we just run the test in a usability lab and see the results. Next question is, hi Hassan, I have recently done a fellowship on digital public infrastructure, a fellowship on digital public infrastructure, and couldn't help but notice the focus on the inclusion while designing a digital product. Now I'm not a designer but a consultant, and I would like to ask you some examples of exclusion from your experience or industry practice that I could keep in mind while we are doing user research to establish user personas? I'm assuming examples of inclusion and probably not exclusion. um, uh, so, as a consultant, I think, the word designer, also people think that just making things on a screen is a designer. I think if you're making any process better, you're designing that. You're designing your life every day that you live. As far as a persona is concerned, while doing user research, it keeps moving up and down. Examples of inclusion that I could keep in mind for creating. Look, I think one important thing for creating personas, it's a blanket kind of statement on this, is that when we create personas, often we sit in a room and we imagine what the persona is going to be for a product and service, right? There's a bunch of designers sitting in rooms like, okay, this is a persona for Gen Z, this is a persona for this is a persona for that. But the accurate way to actually do user personas is you have to actually go out in the field and do your research with who you think the people of the users of your product will be. And then once the data comes through, then you create specific user persona types based on that. So to give you an example, we worked with HBL on channel migration, where we had to understand why people were still going to the branch to do transactions that they could do digitally, such as fund transfer, bill payment, balance inquiry. So we went to 25 branches across Pakistan for 3 months. And then, based on the people we spoke in the branches, we were then able to create personas based on that. So, the persona of a rider, persona of a peon, persona of student, of a retired person, of a business person. And then we understood each one's motivation and behavior in relation to why they come into the branch. I hope that answers your question. Oh wow, there are a bunch of questions coming in. Umair, maybe if you can also let me know if any of these are good. How do you
There's a question from Iman Arif. How important is it for a designer to develop and promote unique style or theme? Do clients prefer that or do
and
they
your
want?
usability should be able to achieve that business goal. That's very straightforward. How do you advocate for design when your co-founders dictate the design and they don't believe you as a designer? If they don't believe in you as a co-founder, as your business partner, I think you have the wrong partner, my friend. Uh, if they don't believe in you and they're telling you what to do, even though they're your partner, then what kind of relationship is that, and what kind of product is going to come out of the end? I am not sure. um, where's the empathy in that, right? um, Hey Iman, here I have a few guys. Like, how important is it for a designer to develop or promote a unique style or theme? Do clients prefer that, or do they want a more neutral approach? Okay, so when it comes down to themes or design systems, right? Again, it's a branding and positioning activity. So you may have followed Naya Pay's new redesign, right? So what they did is that they've established a new look and feel for the particular target segment that they're hoping to achieve towards. So it really comes down to your marketing team, your branding team, and you as a design team thinking about who is your target and what kind of look and feel will work for them. And sometimes look and feels are important to attract customers and for a little bit of usability. But at the end of the day, the way the UX is designed is what's going to finally get the most business outcomes for any organization. So if any of you guys are Mizan Bank users, there's a new app and there's an old app. The new app's UI is really good. We did that. But if you think about the UX, we did a good job on that, but there's so many service level things that make the user experience not good. So that black and white and yellow version from a user experience perspective is still amazing, right? So look and feel sometimes is secondary. It's also about how it works. So creating a style is important, and it's a collective effort with you and brand on how you want to position. Sir, you said about the combo of design and business. So how can I lie? So you just said about the combo of design and business. So how can I align evolving design aesthetics with current market trends to create visually appealing solutions that all, I think I already answered this question. Umair, is there any question that's popping out to you?
Uh, there's one from Zen Zulfikar. Apart from the steps to get the seat at the table, what other traits would transform a designer into a design leader?
Hi Zen, how you doing? Zen, I think Zen, you're a living example of this, yeah. But apart from the steps to get the seat at the table, what other traits would transform a designer into a design leader? Look, I mean, most of my talk was talking about that, but I think what other traits other than what I talked about? I think you just need to be a really good person. To be honest, you need to be an honest. You need to be an honest person. You need to be a good person. You need to be a curious person. You need to you need to genuinely care. Like you have to like truly, truly, truly care as a person about people and about the problem. I think that's what's gonna really help you be a leader is caring. I hope that answers your questions then.
There's another one. What's one mistake you see emerging design leaders make?
What is one question I see emerging design
One
leaders make?
mistake, yeah, one mistake you see emerging designers make.
I think one mistake that I see that's happening in the industry is often what happens is that say you're a junior designer and or you're a senior designer and you just automatically become a lead designer, right? And they may have been making you a senior or a lead maybe based on the number of years that you've worked versus thinking about leadership qualities, right? So the mistakes that a lot of people make as design leaders in those positions is they're too caught up in maybe the aspects of doing things without thinking about, okay, how am I managing my design team? So these are management skills and soft skills. So how am I managing my design team, and how am I also managing the stakeholders like product and business who I'm working with? So often it's important for you, as you're leveling up your hard skills and you're moving more towards the leadership and soft things. It's also important that you work on management, and more than anything, you work on communication. I think the biggest mistake that leaders make is not working on their communication skills, because at the end it's going to be 50% communication and 50% doing the work. I think that's very, very important.
There's another one from Kiran Bukhari. What are some signs that a company truly values design at the leadership level?
What are some signs that like the leadership team? Okay, this is really good. That's a really good question. Firstly, they share themselves about the value of design. So they themselves are taking steps to understand, okay, what is design thinking, what is design maturity, how is design going to actually help my organization. And I've seen that happen with some clients that we've worked with. So when we started talking about design thinking, they went and did an intro to design thinking class, and then they said, hey Hassan, we understand this now, and now we understand your value, and now we can see how you're going to help us actually pilot this product better. So we don't want you to just help us design the screens, but we also want you to be help we also want you to help us pilot this product. So when they're starting to use that language, you can see those are good signs. When they're talking about the end customer, right? When they're thinking about outcomes and impact, these are indicators and signs that your senior leadership cares about design.
There's one about the approach designing for both usability and business goals.
I think I already answered
Yeah, yeah.
that. I
Go ahead.
like this one question, Bilal Rahman. I just saw this. You told about Abhi, startup, obviously talking from Pakistani mindset and perspective. How easy slash difficult was it for you to actually bring them to proper user research, right? So, Bilal, the way you can do this is very simple. You have to ask them one simple question. If you don't do this research, what will be the results? You need to speak their language, right? Like, what is the risk? So, I told the founder, hey, your risk of not testing this is two things. One is you target the wrong person, you don't get adoption, you don't get further funding. So you make the problem really real to them. And that is how they're going to say, okay, yeah, okay, I think we should actually test it. Number two is like you're saying, hey, if you don't do the research, you don't do the testing now, and you build the product and you launch it, it will cost you more money to go back and fix it later. So these are two very good ways that you can advocate for research. Also, what time frame the app was completed in general, the whole structure. Oh, believe it or not, Abhi's entire design and research project only took 4 weeks. That's it. We did it in 4 weeks. I think they developed it in another 4 weeks. It was launched in 2 months. So it was a very, very quick thing. You got to be quick. You got to be really quick. All right. I think we have time for another question. You have a question, Umair. Okay. What's your question? What's one individual contribution skill that totally failed you as a leader? What do you mean? Like
So, being a designer,
what's one skill that I've totally failed at as a leader?
yeah.
Okay, my for me, honestly, and you're putting me on the spot here, but not everybody's perfect, right? Everybody has flaws. And I think for me, my one of the biggest lessons that I have learned as a design leader is do not give feedback to people in a public space. It will it will destroy them. If you have to give somebody feedback, especially harsh feedback, take them aside, take them to another room. First, appreciate them. Say, hey, this is what you've done really well. However, these are the things that I feel you could do better. That's one big mistake I've made as a leader, is that giving feedback in a public forum. Don't do that. It's not a good
Wow.
practice. And sometimes you get short temperedness and you
Yeah.
yeah. But I think that's one thing, that try to be patient and create that space. Remember what I said? Create that space.
All right. I think we're good with the questions.
I think maybe, are we good or should we take? I love Aman Ullah Faisal, man. I think you really need to rethink your life. To, to validate business goals, we need to excel in UX metrics. Can you share any resources that are helpful? I think what's important more than resources, I don't know if Hussaini Indoor Wala is here right now, but I think very important is the UX metrics, or whatever metrics need to be co-designed with you and your business teams. So are you looking at conversion? Are you looking at retention? Are you looking at, I don't know, delight? So whatever that metric is, you need to decide that. There's no like one answer towards that.
I think we are good with the questions.
All right.
We may have to move to the next session now. By the
Okay.
way, uh, who is the winner for the voucher code, Hassan? And you can stop your screen so I can share mine.
Okay, yeah. Let me. We have to decide right now in the next. Okay,
Yeah,
wow. Really, we have to decide right
yeah,
now.
right now.
Uh, I think you had a really good question, but I can't give you the, because you put me on the spot there.
Can I vote?
Can you? Oh, can you? Can you vote? What do you mean?
Yeah, people can like that
Oh, you
person.
want to like somebody's? Can
Yeah,
people see each
yeah,
other's questions?
yeah. They can like it, right?
I think, yeah, maybe like each other's questions. Uh, I honestly like it.
Like that question from Kiran Bukhari about the true value of design at leadership level.
Where is
Oh,
that?
okay. It's getting more votes here now. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I think this was a good question. These are good
So,
indicators. These are really good. Yeah, I think Kiran's question, I guess it takes the cake.
so perfect. Kiran, you will be getting a $50 Figma store gift card, and we'll share the voucher code with you. So kudos.
All right.
And thank you, everyone. By the way, our next session is from our neighbors, Padosi, from Ahmedabad and Friends of Figma Pune. Do look out for this session after this Karachi session. And if you like the session, if you have more questions regarding the session, please scan this QR code, fill the form, and I'll pass these questions to Hassan specifically and get back to you guys. I'll count to five so you guys can scan this QR.
5 seconds.
All right.
More
All
than
right.
5 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyways, if you guys want to keep in touch, please do connect.
Yes, and that's that's about it. And it's all about the community. Sessions are happening throughout all the Figma chapters: Sydney, New York, Seattle, San Francisco, Karachi. Uh, and if you like to hear more about these sessions, do join the Friends of Figma to our website. There are more sessions happening after it. So thank you for joining, and thank you, Hassan, for conducting this great session. It was really valuable for me, and I believe it was really valuable for all our attendees. I heard a lot of questions that were really insightful for me as well. So thank you everyone, and thank you Hassan for taking this session.
Thank you.
Take care, bye.
Bye.